Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Weiner, Program Manager of Education and Practice at the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health. I am joined today by my colleague, Emily Burke from the ASPPH Data Center. Thank you for joining us for today's ASPPH Presents webinar, Collecting and Utilizing Graduate Outcomes Data. Today's webinar will be 1 hour in length. We will begin with opening remarks and background, followed by 3 presentations lasting approximately 10 minutes each, and ending with a question and answer period. This webinar is part of the 2016 ASPPH Presents Monthly Series, which has been designed as a service to CEPH accredited ASPPH member schools and programs of public health. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the ASPPH website in the archived webinar section soon. Additionally, this webinar has been approved for 1 hour of CPH continuing education credit. A few housekeeping items of note. While you are in listen-only mode and your lines have been muted, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation by using the question box. We will address your questions at the end of the presentation. Our speakers today include Christine Plepes, the Director of Data Analytics at the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, or ASPPH. Ms. Plepes is responsible for ASPPH data collection, analysis, and dissemination of information. She oversees the ASPPH Data Center activities, including survey and data source development, data analysis and visualization, and data communication. Prior to joining ASPPH, Ms. Plepes worked at the National Center for Health Statistics, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Ms. Plepes holds a Master of Science degree in Statistics from Texas A&M University. Our second speaker, Megan Garber, has worked in career services at the University of Miami for 11 years. She joined University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, graduate programs in public health in 2013, and oversees comprehensive advising, the Capstone program, and career and professional development for the MPH and MSPH students. Previously, she was an Assistant Director of Career Development and Outreach at the University of Miami Topol Career Center for nearly 8 years. Megan has a Master's in College Student Personnel from Purdue University and a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Notre Dame. The third presenter today, Vic Masalia, has extensive experience in leadership, career, and organizational development in both the public and private sectors. He is currently the Director of Career Services for the School of Public Health at the University of Minnesota. Before joining the School of Public Health, he was a career counselor at the University of Minnesota Law School, where he provided career paths, job search strategy, and life-work balance counseling for law students, alumni, and foreign-trained attorneys. Vic holds a master's degree in human resource development with a concentration in career development from the University of St. Thomas, and he is currently a PhD student in higher education at the University of Minnesota. Rounding out the presentation, Heather Krasna is Assistant Dean and Director of Career Services at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health. In this role, she leads a team providing high-quality career services to students and alumni of the program and builds partnerships with a wide range of public health employers. She is a career and executive coach with over 17 years of experience, as well as the author of the first book to cover both nonprofit and government careers. Heather has a Master of Science in Nonprofit Management and a certificate in Organizational Development from the New School, a certificate in Adult Career Planning and Development from NYU, and is a certified social sourcing recruiter and certified diversity recruiter. Thank you all for being here today. I will now turn it over to our first presenter, Christine Plepes. Just one moment.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And welcome to our members. Thank you for joining our call today. Today I'm going to provide a brief history of employment data collection at ASPPH and introduce our new annual graduate outcome data collection. While the ASPPH Data Center has over 40 years of data from our annual data collection, the collection of graduate outcomes and graduate employment data has been less consistent. We have a longitudinal study from the last century, which looked at career paths of graduates. This project looked beyond just the first graduate outcome in employment to anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 years of jobs that the graduates had. Following that, there was an effort in the mid-2000s of a centralized exit survey that at that time, ASPH was conducting. This survey happened for a couple of years and then moved over to part of the CEPH annual data annual reporting. However, there were too many complications and it became too complex, and so that was stopped by CEPH. In 2013, ASPPH began a new effort to answer the question, where do recent graduates of ASPPH member institutions find employment? This came about from a few different areas. Number one, from you, our members. You were asking for this data. You kept asking us where the graduates went, and we didn't know. Our public health partners, such as CDC, were also asking for this data, and once again, we didn't really know. And also, given that the higher education return on investment is such a hot topic these days, this data is very important for the future students and their families. Our goal with this project was to build a this entire project is to build a cohesive data collection methodology in order to get a reliable aggregate answer to where these recent graduates find employment. The pilot project, had a number of assertions. One, we needed to have a pilot project. We needed to guide this project based on information from our members and to learn from them, how did they collect this data? What kind of response rates did they get? What did they collect? And would a centralized data collection effort at ASPPH, would that actually work? We had another assertion that our members need to recognize the benefit of this data. I always like to say that we have 100 members and 100 different ways of doing things, and that is definitely true in the case of graduate outcomes data collection. We learned from the pilot that there are different timings of the data collections, there are different categories used for the data elements, different methodologies, and different response rates. So how do you build a cohesive data collection with all of these differences? Well, we knew that members have to recognize the importance of this data, not only for themselves, but for the advocacy efforts at ASPPH and our member institutions, for student recruitment, for assessing the workforce trends, and for potential member benchmarking and peer comparison. So because of all these differences and because members need to recognize the benefit of this data, not only to them and to ASPPH, we know it will take time to implement this data collection. We learned a great deal from our members during the pilot. We had 57 members reporting and almost 5,000 graduates as part of that data collection. If you'd like to learn more about the pilot project, you can find the report online at our data center member website. So building off the pilot and with the help of a work group, I see a number of members from the Career Services Forum who are on that work group are on the call today, and also members of the Data Advisory Committee. We have now added graduate outcomes as a new data category to the regular ASPPH annual data collection. This is the first time that we will collect this data annually, and I do believe it's the first time we've added a whole new category to the annual data collection in quite a long time. So what are we collecting? Well, the work group's goal, or a mission as I gave it to them, was that we needed to define what are the mission critical data elements. We recognized that we needed to keep it short, that we could go on and on with a whole bunch of wished for ideas and wished for information that we would want to know. However, our members sometimes add this employment data to their much longer graduate and alumni surveys. So we needed to make sure that we kept it short. In addition, there's a lot of survey fatigue amongst the graduates. And so once again, keeping it short was our goal. Of course, we knew we needed to align with CEPH, but then we knew we needed a little bit more information as well. So we recognize that all members will be able to report all of this data collection items this year. Hence, this is also our beta year as far as annual data collection. So we're looking for feedback from our members, and we'll be very, very curious to see what data is reported. As you can see on the slide here, the top item is aligning with the CEPH annual reporting. It's what is the primary graduate outcome for each of the students. From there, ASPPH is adding more categories to find out what are the employment details. We want to know what are these mission critical items, full-time, part-time, what is the employment sector, where is the detail more detailed, if available, employment sector information, whether the graduate was in the same position while pursuing their degree, and what was their salary and first-year bonus, if that was applicable. We're also asking another question on continuing education details, particularly wanting to know whether did they go into a public health degree or training, or a medical degree or training, or an other degree or training. And of course, we are asking about debt, because that is a very hot topic these days. We're providing a number of resources for our members. All this data is collected through our data center member portal. Each of our member institutions has a data administrator assigned to lead that data collection effort for their institution. So if you're on the call today and you do not have access to the data center member portal, you can contact your data administrator. But on there, we have the instructions and the definitions. We have the methodology, a sample survey, which can be provided to you if you use SurveyMonkey. And with
Sure.
barring any other audio issues.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan, and I'm from the University of Miami. And we are graduate programs in public health within the School of Medicine. So first, I wanted to give you a little bit about our size, because some of you may be much larger. Some might be about the same size. We have about 200 students. Oh, actually, I just realized we have about 400 students. I'm sorry. We have 200 MD and PhD students, and then we have 200 other master's and PhD students. So, and we have a staff of about 10. You can see the staff on the slide. And I put in orange the staff that are involved in collecting data about our graduates. We have a director of accreditation and doctoral administration, and she is our point person to submit data to CEPH and to ASPPH and to other accreditation sources, but she works with all of our staff to kind of collect that data. We all play a different role. So then my role is to kind of send out the exit surveys, create them, and then we have a senior program coordinator for events and outreach who is going to be doing exit interviews one-on-one with our MPH graduates when they're getting ready to graduate. So how and when we collect the data, we actually do 2 surveys. We do the first one, it's the overall program satisfaction survey, and we ask questions about the overall courses, overall teaching, advising, program leadership, resources, and a general question or 2 about their career plans. And we send that about 2 weeks before graduation. So we send it 3 times a year, May, August, and December. And starting now, it's going to be sent by our senior manager of enrollment. In the past, I was the one who sent it. And that one is completely anonymous, so we have no idea who says what. And the response rate on that one is pretty high. I think it's at least 85% of our students will complete that. Some of them, we send it to everyone who applies for graduation. So some students might not actually graduate. They have to finish their capstone project or their thesis, but we want them to fill out the survey when they're done with all their classes before they aren't as connected to us. Then the career exit survey asks all the questions about, what is your contact info? Did you work during your master's? What are your plans for after graduation? Will you be continuing your education? That one is identifiable by name. That's kind of the best way to find out who has taken the survey and who needs to still complete it. We send it as the students are actually cleared to graduate. I send it, and then we do offer a small incentive. We'll raffle off a $50 Amazon gift card to those who complete it twice a year. And then starting this December, our senior program coordinator is going to be meeting with students one-on-one as they get ready to graduate, and she's going to ask them maybe 5 to 10 questions. What are your plans after graduation? Where are you going to live? Are you going to continue your education? And that's really for our tracking purposes. One of the things that we kind of found out is once they're not located in Miami and we don't see them every day, we got a lot of questions from leadership and from admission as to where are the young alumni? Where are they? Can we have them do a recruitment event for us? Can we have them come speak about something, and so it is helpful to actually ask them in person. So we're trying that. The other thing I just learned, I've tried doing the career exit survey where it is completely anonymous, thinking that students might be more willing to give their salary information, but it's very hard to know who's completing it. And then when people ask, well, where exactly are our graduates, it's helpful to kind of know exactly who is doing what. In terms of the overall satisfaction survey, it is helpful to ask the same questions each year, because your leadership, my leadership, they wanted to know exactly how, like if there was any trends. So asking the same questions made it easy to track that. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Just a reminder to continue to submit your questions as we go through the presentation. And we'll turn it over now to Vic.
Yeah.
Vic, you should be something.
Just a little bit about the University of Minnesota here. We have about 1,250 students, 4 divisions. We focus our energy on biostatistics, environmental health sciences, epidemiology and community health, and then health policy and management. We offer 21 master's degrees, MPH, MS, MHA, and 4 doctoral programs. So I'm moving the slides, and there's Darren on the way to the right-hand side. So it's just Darren and I as the career counselors to service our students, and then we have a third individual, Megan Gallard, who does our employer relations outreach, and she also manages our field experience or internship program as well. And here's our vision, and values. Just wanted to show you what's going on, what kind of drives the way that we behave in our efforts. So at the School of Public Health here, we have 2 specific surveys that go out. One is a yearly survey that's sent out to all students at the end of the school year, around May, and it's a student satisfaction related survey asking how their experience was for the year, how was the classes that they were taking, their involvement on campus. It's down and dirty, and it's a quick survey. Also, from the career aspect, we get information regarding their interaction with our office. Regarding the career survey, we offer this, well, just like many of your universities do as we do, and that's we have students who graduate every month. And we send the initial survey in March, and then we continue to send that to the student until they fill it out. So basically, they'll receive an email from our office every month until they complete it. And so that's one way that we try to collect the data. There is a website. It looks like this. This isn't the survey, obviously, but they log into here, and they'll complete the career employment summary. We also use a tool called Qualtrics, and we used to have a data person that would send this out, and now this is sent out from our office, and Darren and I are responsible for collecting the data. What we'd like to do eventually is get our alumni office has a tool called iModules, and it's an alumni database, and what we'd like to do is have the surveys sent out from the alumni office, and so they will automatically be enrolled into that service for the alumni. So we want to make sure that we're collecting the right data through that tool, but sure, it would be nice to get out of being the middleman, to give that data to alumni. For those that don't complete the survey, we get about a 70% return rate. We're looking at making it mandatory, and if anybody that has a mandatory, like, you will not get your diploma until you fill out the survey. I really appreciate you letting me know how you were able to implement that. That'd be great, so we can have like a little incentive or a big incentive to have them completed. But we don't have that mandatory power at this time. So right now it is, I hate to say it, we bug them for that. We have a marketing campaign that, have you completed your career survey, that we'll put around the school. For those that haven't completed the survey, what we do is we have a work study, and Darren and myself will comb LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, and perhaps a broader search with Google to try to complete the survey for our students or alumni, just to make sure that we can be on top of that. We also reach out to our faculty and our program coordinators to see if they know where students have gone as well. We are going to be reporting the data eventually using a tool called Tableau, so it'll be a live data. And so where do students go? We'll have a map that shows with the number of alumni in a particular area. So we're really excited about that extension as well. We also are, Darren and I are exploring this isn't necessarily a career survey related, but we're looking at creating a after counseling appointment survey. So once you meet with us, we will send you a SurveyMonkey or some type of evaluation on how that appointment went. And part of that is collecting data for how difficult it is to see the two of us, so to try to get more data to see if we can get either more resources or change the nature of how we do the interactions with our students. So with that, if there's any questions, you can reach one of us offline here, but do you have any questions now? One at a time.
Thank you, Vic. As Vic mentioned, please continue to submit your questions through the question box, and we will address them after this next and last presenter. Heather, I'm going to transfer the keyboard and mouse to you so you can advance through the slides.
And can you hear? I hope you can hear me okay. I'm going to, yes, good. So I'm going to briefly talk about how we gather data at Columbia, but I'm also going to talk about what we do with the data once we have it. Because actually our methodology is really pretty similar to what Vic and Megan actually both described. So we do a ton of different surveys, but the one I'm going to focus on is our employment outcomes survey. We have 3 different graduation times, October, February, and May. And we get a list of the students who have filed for graduation from our registrar, our student affairs office, and then we email them a unique link using Qualtrics. And we send, the way we use Qualtrics allows us to send a reminder email to those who never filled out the survey. And we send that a lot of times, I think 7 or 8 times till people fill it out. We do also, just like I think Megan mentioned, we use a gift card, an Amazon gift card drawing as an incentive. We'll say it's required, but we actually have, just like Vic, we don't have a way of actually mandating anything, but we'll say it's required. Then once you have that data, we synchronize that with the registrar data using VLOOKUPs in Excel, and that way we're able to see exactly who filled out the information and who never responded. And then we do a lot with that Excel file where we, we gather a lot of anecdotal, not anecdotal, but ad hoc data. So when, let's say a recent graduate is in the middle of their job search and they have an offer and they're negotiating the salary, they will contact one of our staff and we'll keep notes that the person received an offer. We'll take notes of that. If they're still looking, we'll take note of that. And then 6 months after graduation, approximately, actually it's basically just one time a year in December, so for some of the graduates that's 6 months, actually most of them because they mostly graduate in May, but for some it's a little longer out, we will send a follow-up survey to that same group using Qualtrics, and then we'll go back to that Excel file and match it again, and then in that December follow-up, we will do an additional, some additional research. Just like Vic mentioned, we'll look people up on LinkedIn one by one. We will send a list of the non-responders to each of their respective academic departments to try to get as much information as we can. So I've looked at, in our class of 2015, we had about 82% knowledge rate. So we had information about 82% of the graduates. And within that, about 70% of that information was from survey responses, and the rest comes more from, actually it's more than 70%, but most of it comes from survey responses, and then some of it comes from the LinkedIn or the departments. So the method is pretty similar to what was described before. Once we have that Excel data, then we can do a lot of fun and interesting analysis with it, and it's basically used for many target audiences. So we have data which is available to the public on our website. It's used a lot with prospective students, admitted students, and also current students to try to identify what type of career they could achieve or what path they could go on with their degree in public health. Then we have reports which are kind of more internal, which may be used for faculty presentations, and we have a very detailed report. It's about 25 pages long, which is something that is kind of password protected, which we would give to students. And it's just basically more information than most people would want to see on the website, but it goes into more detail, and it lists some of the job titles by department, industries by each department, what job function each different department goes into. And so we have 6 different departments in the school, so we'll split it out by each department. We've also got 24 different certificates, which students can add on top of their degree. Depending if they're an MPH student, they can pursue a certificate, and so there has been interest in what type of jobs students get based on their certificate. So we have that information. We now have, I think, 4 years of data, so we can analyze industry trends over those years to see if there are changes by industry. We look at salary and salary increase. So we ask in our survey, if you had a job before coming to the Mailman School, what was your salary in the most recent position? And then what we can compare that with what people got afterwards. There's many ways you could ask that question. You could just ask, did you have an increase in salary, you know, after graduating, and if so, how much? But we just ask the before and after salary. There's also geographic location. We have international students, and they in particular would want to know if they could find a job in the United States after graduating, so we have a separate section on that, and that's very useful for those students to get a sense of what type of employers may be open to international students. Then we gather all sorts of other data about, this is a little bit separate from the employment outcomes survey, but we also have data about which of the different academic departments are using appointments, are coming to workshops, attending job fairs. So we can say, okay, one of our academic departments is not utilizing the services of career services. So one of the other things we, of course, do is use this data for external reporting. And there's actually two entities where it's used as part of accreditation, of course, CEPH. There's also CAMI, because we are a CAMI accredited MHA program. And I'm very grateful to my colleagues in our Health Policy and Management Department because they thankfully take care of that. Otherwise, I think I'd be pulling even more of my hair out to try to get that data. There are 2 other programs now, ASPPH, which is going to be having the data collection, and there's also the National Association of Colleges and Employers, which for the first time is gathering postgraduate employment outcome data across all graduate programs in the country. And so, you know, each one of these different data collection entities or reports have slightly different timelines and different data definitions, and so we just learned to try to be flexible and to try to accommodate as many of these different sorts of data definitions and timelines as we can without going overboard, I guess. We also, like I mentioned, use the data for internal reports. So every year I reach out to the department chair for each of the different academic departments, and I'll ask if they would like me to come to a faculty meeting to do a presentation about where the students found jobs from their specific department. And so I'll do a comparison of that department with the school-wide industry or sector, and compare school-wide salaries versus salaries in that specific department. We'll look at industry, the industry's trends, job titles, and this is where I also can reach out to the faculty to say, you know, okay, the students in your department are not coming in for career services appointments. Would you please let them know to come in? That's how I would use that program utilization data also. So that's really for the faculty meeting. So here's just an example of the type of data that we might have. I learned the hard way that you have to really be thoughtful about the salary in particular, because we have a number of programs where students come in with an MD or PhD, or they're in an executive program, and obviously these are people who will be skewing the average by a long shot. So we have to take them out of the data and of average, median, and range of salaries by industry or sector, but just looking at the master's level, basically. And of course, to be confidential, I don't give out the exact minimum and maximum range, because this is all data that is confidential. This is an example of what I found just looking at 4 years of sector data. And I've been looking to see if other schools are noticing a similar trend, that maybe there's changes by industry in terms of who's hiring our graduates. And I don't have too many explanations why we're seeing a trend. There's a couple obvious trends that I've seen where consulting has grown a lot. Pharmaceuticals has tripled, even though it's only 6%. And then the other category, which is like technology, tech startups, marketing, finance. I think it could be because we now have an MHA and we didn't have that before, and maybe that's where, but I'm also seeing that our epidemiology students are now going into tech startups and consulting, which they never did before. So this is eye-opening and interesting. And then other reports that we'll use this for, I've been asked to provide feedback to curriculum committee to say, okay, which of our 24 certificates has the best career outcomes in terms of employment rates or salaries, and that can be useful. We use this to find, to inform which employers we're reaching out to. So if we notice that there's certain students or either departments or certificates or even just industry areas where there's a tougher job market, we will use that to guide how we're going to spend our time and effort in employer outreach to kind of fill those gaps, to help those students that are having trouble finding a job. We also look at, you know, the small percentage, it's a pretty small percentage, who are still looking for jobs 6 months after graduation. And I wish I were a statistician sometimes, because it would be really interesting to look to see if it's really statistically significant, but definitely some differences among those who are still looking. Some of it is what they're focused in, what their industry is that they're looking for. Some of it's personal factors, but I'm always looking at that to see what can we do to prevent those people from still being unemployed in 6 months. Is there anything we could do for intervention? And then, and for external reports, the admissions folks love to point to our final numbers, but I think the picture is more complicated than that. We do focus on which employers come to campus. This is great for admissions as well. We can point to those employers where we have a partnership. And again, you know, if I have a prospective international student and they're wondering if they have any chance to work in the US, I can tell them about that data. Now, I know we haven't done as much of this, but I believe that once this data is gathered more centrally, that it can also be used to show the impact of our degree programs, because if you can show that students really are going into mission-critical, mission-driven career paths that are making an impact in the public health by proving that they've gotten jobs in those fields, that's a very powerful piece of advocacy just on the national level. So I think this data is very, very important. I think it's complicated. I think it's interesting. It's tricky because you have so many different stakeholders and different definitions. But this is some of what we do to actually use the data. And I just want to add one last thing, which is sometimes I'll get a question from a student, you know, should I choose this or that as my degree program, which has a better job outcome? And even though there are differences, I always tell students you should focus on your interests and your passion and not only focus on just job outcomes, because you know, the job market may be wonderful for one particular degree program today, and in 2 years maybe things will be different. But what matters is that you're pursuing your interest and passion as well. So the data is important, but it's definitely not the whole picture. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you to all of our speakers, Christine, Megan, and Vic. We are now going to take this time to address all questions that have been submitted throughout the presentation. Please continue to submit questions. Emily?
Great, thank you. And this first question is for Heather at Columbia. The question is, with the data that you are collecting, have you found any disparities in graduating outcomes among your students? And if so, what strategies have you implemented to address possible disparities in these graduating outcomes?
This is a great question, and it's also really tricky. I will say this. So for example, Biostatistics has the best employment outcomes in the school. We cannot even find one single biostatistics graduate who's unemployed in 6 months, and that's been true for the last 2 years in a row. So it's really obvious to me that that's because if you would go and look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and look at the occupational outlook, you will see that statistician and biostatistician is in the top 10 fastest growing occupations, and it's been there for many years. So it's nowhere close to a surprise to me that they would have amazing career outcomes. Other times I have students who are more focused on jobs that are mostly found in the nonprofit sector, and they're very mission driven, they're very passionate about saving the world and helping people, and the challenge is that if they're too focused and they're focused on jobs that are only found in small nonprofits, sometimes they may have to wait a little bit longer to find their job. So I find that these candidates do find career opportunities, but it can take them a little bit longer, or they may have 2 part-time jobs until they find their permanent job or the funding comes through for their permanent job. So what we try to do about this is we do educate our students and explain to them that these are different job markets for different students and that you have to approach things differently, and we provide a lot of tailored resources for the different academic departments. We reach out to employers that we know would be interested to hire students in a diverse range of different departments. And we explain that in some cases you're going to have to do more networking, more outreach. You may have to be more persistent or put in more applications to find those jobs. I'm not sure if that answered the question because we haven't really, again, because I'm not a statistician, I haven't analyzed the deeper disparities, other disparities that might have to do with demographic things. So I haven't actually had too much of a chance to dig into that. If it's something like, do female students or younger students or students of underrepresented or marginalized backgrounds, do they have a harder time finding jobs? That I haven't actually dug into all that much. I've really just focused more on department and degree and the type of sector students are looking for. But I'm wondering if Megan or Vic, if you have encountered this also, that some departments or some students have an easier time than others to find jobs?
Yeah, I've experienced that. It is market driven, and it's also how the student goes about looking for opportunities. So fortunately, we have a great Minnesota. We have a great healthcare system here, so a lot of our students stick around, and for all 4 of our divisions, find opportunities. It's where I think this is the value of career services overall. It's guiding the students where the market is, and as you mentioned, Heather, earlier, it's like, why did you go to get your degree in the first place, and what is your purpose and your passion? So yeah, I don't have a scientific answer to that question either, other than when students don't know what they're looking for, they're not going to find it, or they're going to find something they're unhappy with. But they should find out. My questions that I ask the students, like, where do you want to work and what do you want to do? And that makes it a lot more real for them. And I find that they're more successful in that type of search. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, we have a general MPH so there's not really like departments to compare. And I have not really analyzed the data to look at like demographic factors.
The one thing I would add is sometimes I like to think that career services is sort of like a health education intervention. It's like where you're trying to inoculate students from unemployment. And I really would love there to be some sort of predictive analytics to say, you know, student coming in right from undergrad with less work experience, but who has very high expectations about the industry or the salary that they're going to achieve, and yet is also really uncomfortable with networking and doesn't realize how hard they're going to have to work to get a job, that this is the type of student we have to reach out to and intervene with. Right now I don't have that data. I'm just saying anecdotally that's like a profile of a student that has a harder time just because they're younger and there may be not as much familiarity about how to find a job, and that's where career services comes in to try to help educate them and motivate them and prepare them so that they can be successful in finding employment.
That's part of the data gathering material that we want to get from our office too, is to ask the question for those that are seeking, especially near graduation, to see how much they've interacted with our office, how many programs did they attend, did they come to a counseling session, to see how engaged they are with our office. And then I would hope that the data state that we are being helpful in that process, but I think we're a couple of years out from having that in place.
Great, thank you all. And Megan, this question is for you. How many exit interviews does your staff member complete in a year? When are they scheduled? After the capstone presentation, before, so on and so forth?
So it's brand new. She hasn't done any interviews yet. We restructured over the summer, and this is kind of, and we actually just had the meeting last week to kind of clarify what exactly was going to happen. But the plan is for her to start meeting with the December graduates like 3 weeks or so before graduation for about a half an hour each. So, and the plan is to kind of make it mandatory so that they would have to do it, and it would be the students that applied for graduation. So they'll be walking in the December ceremony, they'll be finished with their classes. If anything, maybe they have one class left or they're finishing up their capstone project.
Great, thanks. And this is for the group. For those that use the data as a tool to recruit, is there any data to support or quantify the benefits or results of the advertising? Is a survey conducted where students have stated that the information was a deciding factor in coming to your school?
I've heard this is Heather, I've heard that anecdotally once in a while, that a student will come in and say, but it's not, I'm hoping that it's not just the outcome number, but also the specific services and programs that we're actually offering to students in terms of support. Because, you know, we do have our data, and I do speak at open houses for prospective students and admitted student days and so, things like that. And I'm actually a little hesitant to go on about, oh, 97% employment outcome. You know, I think it's great, and that's what we've achieved. But that's, again, it's a more complex picture, and, you know, you can't ever guarantee that for someone because, you know, like anything else, your results may vary based on how much work you put in. And I say at orientation to students, we're a coach, and you're the one running a marathon. You know, the student has to put in that work to get the employment opportunity, and we can't apply on their behalf, you know. So the number or the outcome is important, but what's also important is the actual employers that are coming, the number of employers that come on campus, the type of background that our staff have in terms of helping support the students, the type of special programs or mentoring that we offer among our alumni, you know, all those other pieces of it. I'd like to think that that's also the reason and not just the employment data. I don't know if anyone else wants to add that.
Well, this is Vic. I 100% agree with Heather there. It's, you know, you can promote the placement rate, but again, everybody's on their own journey here, and it's going to be the 5% that are struggling or don't see us in our office that will be unhappy. So the data that's reported is attractive as far as the services that we provide. Excuse me, that is my phone. I don't want to be rude. Pick it up. Sorry, guys. But anecdotally as well, as far as like how do we support the student through the process beyond graduation as well. But students are interested as far as where do people go and what are the numbers. So we just caution them with, everybody's different in their own path.
Great, thank you, Vic and Heather. This next question is for everyone. How are you collecting information for those graduates who are 12 months out?
Well, this is Vic. I'll just start here. That's really the tricky thing. I mean, the CEP requirements wants it at 12 months out as well, and they're alumni at that point, but they oftentimes that we found, even discussions with alumni at that point is like, hey, we're done. We're busy doing our work as an alumni. I'm well on my way in my career. Why are you guys bugging me still? And right now, with the tool, we've mentioned Qualtrics a couple times. That's primarily the way that we reach out at that 12-month point.
So this is Megan, and ours is much smaller, so just putting that out there. We probably have, less than 100 on the MPH side a year, so we have an Excel file of names and what they're doing. So our director of accreditation, before she submits it officially, like a month before, she'll share it with all 9 members of our staff, and we just comment if we know that anything has changed or if somebody was missing, and then we might send them an email. I think you can do that when it's a smaller program.
This is Heather, and I guess we really have mainly focused on 6 months out, and Christine will know why I say that. It's because the National Association of Colleges and Employers on the national level has suggested, or basically not exactly mandated, but said that the data should be gathered on December 31st for the previous year's graduating class. And in order to be consistent with other graduate programs, I've basically focused the effort on that December follow-up. And I haven't actually even sent a 1-year out follow-up, and part of it is pure staff capacity. Because ultimately, I mean, the data gathering is very important. It's mission critical. It's what everyone looks to career services for. And at the end of the day, our actual job is sitting down with students and helping them on their resume and helping them with an upcoming interview and helping them negotiate salary and getting employers on campus. And this is important, but to me, it's just, I have to really prioritize where to spend energy, and so I've focused mostly on the 6 month out, to be honest. And what that's how we've done it. And I would love to do a 12-month follow-up survey separately, but I haven't really just been able to manage that at this point.
Great. And following up on
Christine, Emily, do you mind if I jump in on this? Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure, just coming from the ASPPH perspective, because we've heard this over from many members, some confusion around the CEPH criteria, and their criteria says that a graduate may take up to 12 months. So they don't necessarily want right at 12 months, but did a graduate have an outcome within 12 months after graduation? So I think that's a very important difference, whether if members are feeling they have to do it at 12 months, I suggest you review the criteria again, call us, call CEPH to clarify that.
I mean, I think there's no right or wrong, really. I mean, I'm using the NACE standard, but I think other schools may prefer the 1 year out, and whatever works for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess that wasn't clear. I mean, we're not trying to get additional data at 12 months. It's typically the ones who haven't responded, and that's the response we get at 12 months. it's why are you bugging me now? And it's like, well, we still don't have that data. So we're not trying to collect, add, 2 times.
Great. And I think, Heather, you alluded to this a bit in your last response. Someone would like to know, or it has stated that they have limited funding to track down graduates. So do you all have any tips and tricks for how to track them down on limited funding?
I think it's not so much about money as it is staff time, and I know that those are kind of equivalent ultimately, that time is money and you're paying a staff member to work on the data as opposed to some other thing they could do. I do rely on my wonderful colleagues in the different academic departments to try to fill in the blanks. So, and some of them are pretty incredible, and they will know exactly where each and every one of their students has found a job or not found a job. And some of the faculty really know this, some of the academic program liaisons or staff really know what's going on with their students. But, there's not an easy way to do it that I've found. It's just time.
Yeah, for us, I find it valuable to hire work studies. We have a work study, and I also have a human resource development intern who's interested in employment data. So that's one inexpensive way that we can do some of that research, because as Heather mentioned, the majority of our day and my time is counseling, helping people to transition, and we just don't have the time or the money to do that individually. The best case scenario also to save time is, I think you alluded to this well, is process. And if the more we could turn this into a machine, mechanical, meaning that the surveys go out kind of on their own, and then the data can come back in an organized way, that would save us a ton of time. And not having to, like I mentioned, we're going to be using this iModules, or approaching alumni to use iModules. That system already exists, so we don't have to purchase a new system to collect that data.
All right, and our final question, a quick one for you all. I've recently taken on this task for our school. What recommendations do you have for someone new in this position?
Well, my initial thought would be look at the established requirements. What is CEPH and ASPPH and perhaps NACE asking what data you need to collect. So what does success look like in your role is how I would ask that. So what data do you need to have? Next, I would say, do you have the tools and resources to meet that success? And thirdly, it doesn't necessarily need to be concrete sequential, but it's all about relationships. So having a relationship with faculty, staff, students would be incredibly helpful. And then lastly is that you've got your friends in ASPPH that we can give us a call so we can help you talk through some stuff.
I agree with Vic. This is Megan. You can always look and see, you can ask Christine, like if there's any resources at ASPPH that they have specific stuff they're going to ask for that helps you know what questions to ask, but ask someone else that you think does it really well, if they'd be willing to even share their survey with you, talk through it. That has really helped me.
This is Heather. I would add one other thing, which is get somebody to help you with Excel. Excel is like I use it all. I mean, there may be better ways to do this, but I use Excel a lot for analyzing the data. And one of my colleagues showed me how to do pivot tables, and I really wanted to cry because I realized I had wasted, I don't know, hundreds of hours over my lifetime trying to do this a more slow and annoying way when I could have just used pivot tables and had the information in a lovely chart with one click. And so if you're using Excel to analyze, get a little extra training or ask somebody to mentor you with that, because it's not that easy to use, and depending on what you do with the rest of your job, it may not be your strong suit all the time. So that would be my tip.
Thank you for those valuable tips, and thank you to each of our speakers for spending time with us today and lending their expertise. As a reminder, this webinar was recorded and will be made available on the ASPPH website in the archived webinar section soon. Please be sure to contact us with any additional questions and to register for upcoming webinars in the ASPPH Presents series. The next one is on Thursday, Bioethics for Every Generation, incorporating bioethics education into curricula. Additionally, please save the date for the 2017 ASPPH annual meeting and the 2017 Undergraduate Public Health and Global Health Education Summit to be held in Arlington, Virginia. The deadline for abstracts for the Undergraduate Summit is tomorrow. Thank you all. This webinar is now adjourned.